Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Travel Taught Me podcast, where we discuss travel tips, itineraries, and of course, what travel taught you. I'm your host Zahid, and today we've got part-time influencer slash travel blogger Rafia on the line, in the studio. So Rafia, why don't you just kick us off by just giving an introduction about yourself and what you've been doing and how you got into what you're doing now.
Thank you for having me. So yes, my name is Rafia. I have a full-time job. I work in the city, so it's a very, very corporate career. But over the last few years, I've really been getting into traveling, and I think now it's got to a point where I've become quite passionate about it, and I've tried to, share my journey and the places I've visited, but the things that I've learned, solo traveling, and it's all something that I can't wait to get into and discuss in more detail. So yeah, let's get into it. Looking forward.
Most important question, I guess, as the theme of the podcast is, what has travel taught you?
So I think if I was to look back over the last few years where the kind of things that I've done and the sort of places that I've visited, I think probably the biggest lesson that I've learned is don't ever over plan. Like, don't ever think that the place that you're going to go to or the things that you're going to do are going to work out exactly how you envision them. And I think once you really start to step back and let go and go a little bit with the flow when you visit someplace, you really actually, that's when you start learning, and that's when you feel like you're not a tourist and you're more a traveler. So yeah, but I'm happy to go into that in more details.
Yeah. Maybe to take a step back, how did you get into it? Was it kind of driven by, I'll just start traveling? For two things. So one, how do you start just traveling? Was it just a case of, okay, when you start working, you had more money and like, I'll start traveling? Or was it also, I really want to go to this place, or was that something that you kind of gradually grew into the more you traveled?
I think obviously when I was a kid, I think my parents really they did a lot to instill in me this kind of like wanderlust that I like to call, to kind of get out of the house, go and explore, even if it's just in your own neighborhood, but then really get out there and go places and learn. And they would do the whole thing, like go museums and all the touristy stuff. So that was something that I already sort of really enjoyed doing every summer, every holiday. But I think when I actually started working and I realized that we spend so much of our time just working, and then when we are not working, we have free time. It's mostly, catching up with friends and doing socials and stuff. But I just personally felt like there was just something that was not quite fulfilling me in the way that I wanted. And it was actually my husband at the time, and he told me, you know what? You should get out there and you should maybe solo travel. You should start doing something just to really get in there. And I remember this was back in 2019. I think that's when I did my first solo trip, and I'd never done that before. And I was like, oh God, I don't know what I'm getting into. But that was the moment that I realized that, okay, this is something that I haven't experienced before. So yeah.
Let's get into a bit of the technicalities of it, I guess. So you started off doing like an Instagram page. I'll put the link in the description below. But then you also moved on to doing a blog website. So how did that come about, and kind of why? And what's the difference, if someone is looking to get into traveling? This is just my opinion. I think a lot of people you see on Instagram, they just do their Instagram thing. They're like, oh, I'm so cool. Look at this fancy place I'm going to. But then I guess you add more value by doing a blog. So what was your thinking around, okay, how, why you should do it, and then we can get into the technicalities of that later.
So I think when I first started, and you're right, like when I first actually started traveling, and I was like, what, I really want to like make an Instagram and I want to document everything. And I already had something that existed, but it was just like, me brunching someplace or something really random. And then I was like, okay, what, I have a niche, and this is something that I want to show other people, not just where I'm going, but me actually in places, learning about the history, the culture, the people. And so actually the first place that I visited was Malta, and everything that I learned in that solo trip, I packaged it and I put it on my Instagram, and I tried to do it in a way where, okay, we see so much on Instagram. Every day we're inundated with so many things. And I think what I really wanted to channel through my blog, hey, it's Rafiki, was to show people what you can do and how you can actually travel someplace. And it's not about the restaurants that you go to or the outfits that you wear or anything like that. It's actually you taking ownership of your journey and your travel, where you go, and making that adventure work for you. And then I decided, okay, you know what? Instagram is fine. It's very visual, which is great. And I think it's obviously something that, you can either go viral or you can really try to get a good following. But I still felt like I've always been a bit of a writer. I loved writing. I never got into it as much as I should have, but I really enjoyed pouring my thoughts. And I felt like having a blog actually would allow you to do that. It's very time consuming, but I started that, and, I just started with the first thing I could think of. And then one by one, I started putting more and more things out there. And now it's, if somebody messages me and they're now going to those places and they need a full itinerary and they don't know where to go, and you go on Google, there's like 1,000 guides. It's often nice if they just say to somebody, hey, do you know anybody who's been here? And then usually it comes to me and I'm like, oh yeah, here's my blog and you can read about it. And they find it so helpful, and like so many people have come to me, and just even in our own circle. And to be honest, that's fine for me. It doesn't have to be the whole world. Even if it's just 3 people in our friendship circle who are going someplace and it helps them, that's all that blog's for. So yeah.
The other thing is, okay, you start a blog, someone who's a complete beginner, they find it very intimidating. They're like, okay, I need to start a blog, I need to know how to design a website, I need to know all these like technical things. How does that work? So what's the first step? I think that's always this. I guess Instagram is a bit easier in that way because you just post stuff and people use it daily, but to start a blog, you actually need to have some sort of knowledge of website design, or how does that process work? All these technicalities about buying a domain and stuff. Maybe you don't need to go into all the details, but I guess it's not as hard as people think it is, right?
No, it's honestly, I'm like one of those people that I like simple, no frills. And even like the job that I do, I'm not like a graphic designer, I'm not a developer. It's very simple, plain Excel, PowerPoint, like that's it. That's as far as I go. So technicality wise, but I think, so I use WordPress, and the good thing about WordPress is that they had, when I first started, they had all these different like packages that you could go for, but they had a free version as well. And you just basically need to focus more on getting content out and actually just writing, and they make it really simple for you. And WordPress is just one side. There's loads of other ones as well, but this one I felt like had the most functionality and the most variety of templates. And you just have a box that you can literally just put all of your content in there and publish it, and then you can change around with the formatting, and it's just templates. You don't need to do code. I don't know coding, I don't write any of that. You can learn it, but they have a good help desk as well. Every time I had any issues about the formatting, something wasn't working, and the plugins and all of that, I had no idea, but they were really, really helpful. And then it got to a place where I actually found that, okay, you know what, I didn't actually need to pay for the service. Like, you need to pay for the domain just to be able to have your own website if you want. Otherwise they give you like some selected name. But apart from that, and I think that's probably, I think it's like $19 a year or something. So I was like, okay, that's fine. At least I own my blog, so that's great. But yeah, like it's super, super simple, and anybody can do it. So yeah.
Okay, no, that's super helpful. I think it's that analysis paralysis that people have. They're like, oh, I don't know this, I don't know that, so they end up doing nothing. They go, first, to start a website, I need to learn coding and design and stuff, and it's not that difficult. I guess, like you said, you can get into it if you really wanted to, but it might just delay your process. Again, it's just moving on to a bit more of the technical side of things. So when you do your Instagram, obviously you've got quite a decent following now. How is it? How do you kind of keep growing or keep engaging with your audience, whether it's on the blog or on Instagram? Is there a certain formula? Because people are like, oh, you need to post like X reels in a week, or you need to do like this type of content, that type of content. Is that something that you've gotten into, or is it still a bit like, I'll just do whatever I want to do?
So on Instagram, I feel like I've had a love-hate relationship with this platform, because I think when I started, I was literally just posting whatever I wanted, like with the travel, like I would just post it at whatever times I want and everything. I didn't really care about the following. And then actually it was one of my fellow bloggers, and she introduced me to this idea of like, engagement, and basically where you find like-minded people within your niche, and you basically support each other, and that helps to not only get your blog or your sort of Instagram page following within the right community, but also every time you post content, they will come and engage with it, which helps, and then you will do the same for theirs. And that is actually a very good organic way of, and I still use that to this day. I have my community of people, and actually if you go on a lot of my posts, you'll see that sometimes it's pretty much the same sort of like people who are commenting and asking questions, because we're all part of a community, and this is like a bunch of female travelers or travel bloggers. So that's like one really, really good method, which I always encourage to people, to find people within your community who will engage with your content, and that's a really good way of growing. The other one sometimes I found is that every time I've posted about some place, whether it was Finland or the Northern Lights, or whether it was my recent Bali itinerary, some content generally tends to just do better, especially if it's very seasonal. And you'll see now it's summer, and I'm starting to see loads of summer in Europe content, Greece, like South France, etc. So you try to sort of time and see where the market is going, and try to make your content tailored to that. Aside from that, I always say, and I've been through this, do not focus on the algorithm. Instagram's algorithm has kept changing time and time again, and different people will tell you, okay, it's hashtags, or it's this and this and this. And there's a lot of inorganic ways that people grow on Instagram as well. And obviously then there's also like other tools that Instagram also has, whether it's sponsorships or like promotions, etc., which are all fine and they're within the platform. I would personally just say, try to just post the content that you want to post, and just see what other people are doing. A really good tactic that I try to do is see what some of the people that I follow, who have a really good following, much more than mine, when are they posting, how are they posting, what kind of things they're doing. Try to make sure that, like right now, for example, you have to mix up, so it's not all about reels. You have to post like carousels, multiples, like single posts, do like a mix of everything, and that actually has worked quite well for me. So try to do that, and then eventually when you become consistent and you try to develop a good consistent routine, you will see that you will start to get more followings. So, but it's not an overnight process. I think that's what I learned. I've had my blog since 2019. And so it's like almost 4 years later, and I'm doing it very, very slowly. So, and obviously it's difficult doing it when you have a full-time job. So
I mentioned stuff around sponsorships and brand deals. I guess you're still kind of in the part-time phase, so I wouldn't expect you to have like lots of brand deals and stuff, because that's just the nature of the way. But you've had some kind of like perks and stuff. So, and again, the idea is just to kind of explain to the people that this is possible, right? It's not like, oh, unless you have like 100K followers, you will need to have a brand deal or people will reach out to you. You can still do that as a so-called small, if I can use that term, content creator.
I only wish that people were more transparent about this. So here I am to obviously shed some light on how this all works. So a lot of people have asked me before, okay, oh my God, you have a blog, like, do you monetize it? And my answer was, it's not a straightforward yes or no. Typically, and I actually read a few articles on this, while there is no certain limit on how many, or sort of threshold on how many like followings you need to have to be able to monetize, you can actually monetize in a lot of different ways. And that's actually where you kind of have to distinguish what you want to do and how exactly you want to do it. So one example for, if I can mention, is that when I went to Bali, as we all know, Bali, I think, has been trending on Instagram for like forever. And it's a really, really cool destination for backpackers, influencers, digital nomads. Like, it's the place to be. And when I was actually doing my research on where I wanted to stay, I found that a lot of the experiences and even the hotels, they actually were very welcome and open to, the idea that if you were to, post some of their experiences or some of the activities that the hotel or the resort was offering, they would give you some discount. So obviously I took advantage of that. And that is an excellent way to monetize and capitalize on your blog. And then, they actually had a very sophisticated package in place that, okay, if you post this, we'll get you this sort of discount. If you do this, we'll do that. And that was wonderful. So that's one example. Another example that I know, a blogger friend of mine, She's focused more on UK, like escapes, countryside, resorts, etc. And she often, there was a plugin that she found which allowed her to get in contact with, people within hotels, like the marketing teams and PR teams, and specific email addresses. And this is all legal, by the way. Like that is literally filtered you through all the general admin emails of the hotels to the direct person. And she would propose, and she had a pitch, and she said, look, this is what I do, this is my niche, this is what I'm focused on, this is what I can offer you. And a lot of the time she was very transparent. She said that some of them, they were like, okay, we don't do this kind of stuff. But a lot of them said, let's work together. We can give you complimentary stays. We can give you 30% off this, that. And then she would go and she would do a whole review. And I was very impressed by that. So there's a lot of ways that you can monetize your blog, aside from just, getting brands to like pay you and, or give you like freebies and you do reviews. I think we all kind of are familiar with that, but there are some other creative ways that you can monetize.
And I guess the most important thing is you don't need a multi-100K type following for that. You can do it even with a relatively smaller following, and it's just about getting it done. And
yeah, no, 100%. It's literally just about making sure that you're targeting the right kind of companies and people that are within the niche. It wouldn't make any sense if, for example, you were a travel blogger and you're asking Monica Veneda, who has an ambassador program, to be their, blogger. It wouldn't make any sense. So, and their companies actually are very sensitive to the kind of people who are then taking their products and putting them out there and reviewing them. So, yeah.
And I guess moving on from, the kind of blogging side of things to your experiences. You've had, you mentioned you've traveled to Bali recently. So how was that experience? And also, I guess, the highlights of your travels. You've been where, how many countries have you been to? What's kind of been your best experiences, and maybe your worst ones as well?
Yeah. So, okay. So Bali, as like a point A to your question, incredible. I would recommend. I think I have like done it to like death so much. Like when everybody asks me how was it, like I literally started doing like an advertising spiel about Bali. Like everybody, and you've been there. I think you can testify to a lot of this. Like it's incredible, a great value for money. People are like the hospitality, like hospital. It's above like anything that I have seen anywhere, and everyone is so welcoming. It's one of those destinations where I felt like no matter whether you were traveling alone or whether you were traveling as a couple or with friends or whatever it is,
or as a digital nomad.
A digital nomad. Exactly. Like I could definitely, I think they actually have like some sort of a visa for digital nomads as well. Like I read up that they've really tried to like, this is the place to be. It's influencer haven, I'm telling you. I guess second part to your question was about my travel. So I have been to 37 countries so far. And every year, I try to do some new countries, but I think probably the best experience that I've had, it's really, really tricky because I would say that there was no country that I visited that I was like, oh, I regret coming here. Like I have enjoyed every single one of my travels. The best experience I'd probably say, if I put Bali to one side, because I think everybody knows how much I love Bali, is South America. So we did that last year, and I remember when I was, booking the travel, so we did Peru and Colombia. And I remember my parents and a lot of people are like, I frankly, apart from yourself, I don't know anybody who had been to Colombia. And I cannot recommend it enough. It was literally like the best country that I have visited across all my travels. And I remember people were like, wait, like, what are you doing? Like, where are you going? And this is like, as being Pakistanis, like we get this question a lot. People have a lot of assumptions about a lot of places. And actually, when we went to Colombia, we made sure that we were visiting all of the areas, and you will find the guides, the experiences, like they came with you and they told you everything. Like it's no secret. Everybody tells you very openly about what the country had to go through, the places, the regions, the areas, what life has been like. But you see, the whole point of traveling is where has it all come to now? Like how far they have gone to improve the lives of people that are living there. And I remember my favorite experience in Colombia was actually going to Comuna 13. And if you look up what Comuna 13 looked like maybe I don't know, like 20 years ago or early 2000s, like you would be blown away by the transformation that they have done. Like they have escalators. This is one of the most like impoverished places in the country, and they have turned it around so well. Like I mean, I was blown away, and that's the whole point of traveling. So that for me, I loved it. I would recommend everybody to go to Colombia, to South America, to travel to places that you don't know anybody who has been there. Like go for it, because the world is there to be explored. I'd say probably worst experience, wouldn't really say it's with any specific country, but I mean, I think on my solo travels I've gotten lost. Quite like I think there was a time where I went to Slovenia and I was completely by myself and I got lost in like the forest. I was like hiking and I was completely by myself and there was nobody there. But then, you know, I used to do a lot of camping and outdoor activities, and I always remember the rule: if you're lost, just follow the river. And I followed the river, I made my way back down. But that was a bit scary, that, you know, make sure you go with planning. And I've had a few instances like that in some places where I've been alone and I got lost, but I always made my way back down. So
you mentioned you're solo traveling. How is it solo traveling as a female? Has that been an issue? Do you have to be extra careful, you know, if you're traveling as a couple with your partner? Is it different? How much more do you have to be careful when you're traveling as a solo female? Because that's a big thing these days, right? People want to travel, but some people are like, okay, I can't go to X, Y countries because of certain issues. So do you have to be extra careful, and how do you go about doing that?
So on this particular topic, I would say, like, I would be very honest and say that all the solo travels that I have done have been within Europe. And obviously the demographic and, you know, economically, if you look at Europe versus maybe some of the other parts of the world, I wouldn't be able to say, okay, what the experience of a solo female traveler could be in other countries. However, one thing I would say is that whenever we have been to any country outside of Europe, so say when we went South America, when we did Bali, or there was a few other countries as well, I spent a lot of time looking into the kind of activities and experiences that I wanted to do and the sorts of places I wanted to stay. And when we went to Colombia and Peru, we made sure that we contacted this company who, and actually if you're a solo female traveler, I would heavily recommend this if you're like a little unsure. Because you get some people who are very, very experienced and they kind of know they can do the whole thing themselves. But if you're kind of unsure, this is a really great thing, that there are local experiences that will put together tailored programs with you, and it will be very, very small groups. It'll either be yourself and one or two other people, which is what we had, and they will take you, they will drive you, they will do all the transport, so you don't have to worry about having to hitchhike and hail cabs and do things like that. They will literally pick you up from your hotel, take you to the place, they will explain to you why you're here, what you're seeing, and what is the purpose of what they're trying to show you. And I have always felt extremely safe no matter where I have been. So if you kind of go through those channels and, you know, you check the places that you're staying at, you do your research, you do your reviews, or stay in the city center, don't stay too far away. If you're not going to have any means of transport, then obviously don't stay like 5 miles away from all the attractions. So using a bit of common sense, but definitely, yeah, like there's loads of, and this is actually one of the things that I love about Instagram. I found all of my kind of contacts and companies through Instagram. They had so much content out there. I saw it and I was like, okay, you know what? These guys are going to give us make sure that we have a great experience. And we booked it with them, and I have no regrets. So.
About ChatGPT.
So ChatGPT has been like quite revolutionary in my view. I think when we were planning our trip to Bali and we were stopping over in Singapore, I was very overwhelmed in the sense that I was like, I have no idea where to begin. There are so many, there's like 1,000 things that people are telling us to go and do. I don't really know what I'm supposed to be expecting. And planning takes a lot of time. So if you're short on time and you have a place that you need to go to and you have no idea what to do and you don't have the time to go and research and look up, just go on ChatGPT and just ask. And I loved it. I felt like I was having like a friend, a companion, like talk to. I was like, hey, I was even saying like please and thank you, even though it's just a robot. And I was like, what do I need to do? And the good thing is it wrote out everything that I needed to see. And then I just cross-checked some of those places. I was like, okay, these all seem to be located around here. I even told you, okay, if you want like a romantic dinner for two, here are some great recommendations. And within two seconds, I had like booked it already. And it really condensed a week of traveling or a week of research to 10 minutes. So that's another great shortcut to make sure you're planning your trip the right way.
All right, so you've covered obviously the technical side of things, blogging, experiences, kind of a bit of lesson learning as well. Just to finish off, for the sake of our audience, and again, I guess coming back to what we started with, if you just had to give one tip, whether it's blogging, influencing, experiencing, you mentioned Colombia, what is the one thing that you think travel has taught you, and why you would encourage other people to travel? Not document travel, but just start doing it.
Very hard question. I think probably the first thing that actually comes to my mind is if you, or maybe I'll say, I think I like within some of the kind of like circles or people that I've talked to, I have realized that traveling is not something that everybody enjoys. Everybody has a very different idea of traveling, and that's fine, because at the end of the day, it's your money, you want to spend it the way you want to, which I respect. But I always say that I think travel has actually taught me how the world really works and how people really live. And I think we're all very privileged to be living where we are and to be doing the things that we're doing and to actually be able to travel. But a lot of the places that I've visited, even the locals cannot, they've never done any of those activities, and they've never done any of those things in their own country simply because they don't have the means to. And I think travel has actually opened my eyes to life outside of London, life outside of the UK, how people actually live. And you will actually find that a lot of people are very happy as well. Some of them are very, very happy in the circumstances that they have. For us, it might be very shocking, but you talk to them and yeah, they acknowledge they have a lot of problems and they have a lot of things that their country could improve for them. But at the end of the day, they're grateful, they're blissfully, like, they're very positive, they're extremely welcoming, they're so like nice that they could sit down, have a cup of tea and talk to you forever. And whereas here it's kind of like nobody has the time, like we all have like jobs to do, things to do, we're very busy. The minute you step outside and you travel, you realize how the world is and how people are, and that there's a lot that you miss out on when you don't travel. And I always say this is why, if you go travel, try not to go and stay in a resort the whole time. Like, try to just get out and see some of the locals and see the vibe and check out what places are like. And I think then you'll really realize that the world is like an exceptional place, and everybody should be traveling a lot more.
Well, that's super helpful, and thanks for your time, Rafia. I really enjoyed having you on. Do let us know in the comments if you have any questions, anything more specific you want to get into, like monetization, travel blogging, all that. We're happy to cover that in future episodes. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.